Hello. It is Friday, November 28th, 8:08 p.m. I want to go to sleep soon. I have to wake up kind of early tomorrow. I know 8 p.m. is really early, but anyways, I want to talk about how creating content feels cringy a lot of the times. And to be honest, I personally haven't gotten over the feeling completely of creating content being cringe, just because you're talking to a camera, and you're sort of expressing yourself, you're sort of making yourself vulnerable, at least the sort of content that I'm doing. I mean, I do a lot of different stuff, but in terms of video journaling in specifically, or just sharing things that I find valuable, I feel like to a degree there is a cringiness to it, but I think that's inescapable. You just have to embrace it. Something that I struggle with is creating videos when there are people around. And even though I'm in my room, I still kind of not necessarily cringe at the fact, but I become uneasy at just the thought of me knowing that people are around and just hearing me talk. Even though the people that are around me are aware that I do this and they support me doing this, it's just a little, I don't know. It's something that I still have to kind of get over. So even at this point in my content creation journey, I'm like still trying to not necessarily figure it out, but sort of embrace it fully, to the point where I'm like, okay, I am creating content and I'm fine with people hearing me. There's nothing really wrong about, people hearing you about it or hearing you create content, but it's just one of my struggles, I guess. So that is just something that I'm trying to express a little bit more, and hopefully you can relate to it. But at the same time, being cringe is inescapable, like I've said. But it's also very good in a way. Everything sort of feels cringe at the beginning. Sometimes you don't like the thought of people around you listening to you, or them knowing that the fact that you're recording a video. Sometimes you don't like the way you sound in those videos. You're not used to how your voice sounds hearing it, other than the resonance through your skull. So like you hearing it firsthand through your perspective, and not from like maybe a pair of speakers or your earbuds. And that sort of takes a hit on your confidence, and it makes you not want to do it anymore. For me personally, I think I've gotten better at speaking when it comes to long form content. But when I make TikToks, especially the ones where I'm full on like just doing a talking head like this, it's a little bit more edited, just because TikToks are more retention based. So I want to keep the ball moving, as they would say. Just try to hit you with as much speaking and as much value as possible in a short amount of time, because they are short form videos after all. But I still get uneasy, like just looking at my face. Like, look at this. it's so funny. I'm like, oh man, I post all of this stuff, but hey, some of them are doing pretty good. One of them has like 71 likes. It's not that much, but it's more than I thought it would be. Like, I'm still drifting around the few hundred view range. But like, this is part of the process, and it needs to happen, and you need to get over it, or at least try to cope with it, or embrace it, in order for you to move on and to grow. I feel like deep down, I'm not really embarrassed to post. It's just the thought of being seen trying. So, like, like if you imagine yourself at the end, or when you've made it, when you've become successful, I guess, when you've gained a more amount of followers or subscribers or whatever, more amount of engagement, whatever it is, and you're making more of an income as well, that's when the confidence sorts of stems, or that's how I assume, or I thought before how it would be. But that's not really the case. You have to have the confidence now that you've made it. You kind of have to have that sort of energy in order for you to become that person in the future, if that makes sense. Because if you don't do so, you won't become that person. It sort of feels like, okay, I'll start acting like this when I become like this. But that's just not how it works. You have to be the person you want to be that does this sort of goal in order for you to be that person. And you have to do it for a long period of time, very consistently, and it's going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of effort. But if you really, really, really want it, then it'll be worth it. Nothing is going to get in the way of you achieving your goal. And it's going to be the most satisfying thing when you do achieve it. So I guess what I'm saying, or what I'm coming to a conclusion, is like, this is basically what you're watching is a video journal of me sort of expressing what I feel, but also it's a message to myself. Like a reminder of what I genuinely need to do. So in addition to these YouTube videos, there aren't really much things that I show you outside of this, but just so you know, behind the scenes, I am giving it my best. It's just like, I guess the closest thing would be sort of like weightlifting, or calisthenics, or whatever progression, right? If you wanna, I guess it would make sense if it were more of a calisthenics move for me, in my opinion. I was thinking of maybe the planche or the L-sit, but it either way works. Let's take into consideration the planche. No, maybe an L-sit, because an L-sit is probably what more people are familiar with. It's basically you holding yourself in the position of an L, but keeping your body, or while holding your body up. In order for you to do that calisthenics move, you need a lot of abdominal strength, a lot of upper body strength, but you also need the flexibility and mobility. If you were to just be like, oh, okay, I'll try to do the L-sit when I gain enough strength to do so, you're never gonna to reach that place or that goal if you're not taking any sort of action, if you're not doing the active repetitions every single week. Because I feel like if you do it every single day, you can progress every single day, but you got to give yourself rest days as well. If you don't start with more basic things, instead of doing a hold, you can practice. You can just lift your feet off of the ground from the floor. You don't even need to be pushing your whole body weight off of your arms first, and work on that mobility. And then slowly but surely you can progress into a tucked L-sit, and then maybe you could extend one of those legs over time, and then alternate in between, and then you'll be able to hold an L-sit for maybe a second. But then as long as you keep working towards your goal, you be consistent, you'll be able to hold that LSAT. I've butchered that explanation, but I hope you get the point. You have to keep doing the same sort of action as long as you know you're progressing over time, and as long as you're taking the right actions, you will achieve your goal in no time. It's inevitable. And it's up to you on how fast you want to progress. Of course, if you progress a little too fast, you could injure yourself, which would set you back a whole lot farther. I guess that equivalent would be something like burnout. If you do too much, you're going to get overwhelmed, you're going to get burnout, you're going to have to take like a super long break, which would set you back. I hope this sort of makes sense. I'm not trying to make it sort of like a value-based video, but something that I kind of wanted to express in terms of videos being cringy. If I'm being honest, this whole journal session has been a complete mess. I think I've said that already. My brain is all over the place. I'm a little sleep deprived, so that's probably why. But I really do want to see, or I wanted to see how my brain sort of performs at this level with this amount of sleep. I feel like I could definitely do better. I'm a little disappointed, but we are going to work towards it. This is me showing the real me. I think this is personally the future of social media, specifically long-form content. I think that people are going to be more conscious of wanting to slow down and wanting to consume longer form content that are slower paced so that they can actually absorb the information that they're taking in. Because if you're just like scrolling through TikTok and Instagram, you can be fed a whole bunch of information really easily, but it's just like most of the time you're not going to be able to retain it. Sure, you're going to be able to remember those memes and probably like summon them at Q, or maybe even they'll pop up randomly in your head, but they're not going to necessarily do you any good. So I'm trying to do this myself. I'm trying to slow down and consume content that are slower paced, stuff like this, where it makes you think a little bit more. And while it doesn't necessarily provide you any sort of value up front, it kind of gets your mind thinking, and it kind of gets your mind opened up a little bit more, just so that you're able to think for yourself and not just having things fed to you all the time. So if you stuck to the end of this video, I hope you got what you wanted. I feel satisfied by this ending. The beginning part, the middle part kind of sucks. It always ends up like that for me in my vlogs and my journaling. Like the first few minutes are kind of like scrappy, but then the real value comes towards the end. So I really appreciate you for watching. I will end it off here. Thanks for listening. I'll see you tomorrow.